Hey, good evening to everybody. You're joined for Flower Hour, episode 10. I'm going to be going live today with Lewis, one of the founders from Man Talk. We're going to be talking about why he's founded the organization and how important it is for men to speak about their issues and so much more. So I'm just looking forward to having this conversation. So I hope you guys ask questions, repost, comment, throw your questions in the live as well if you enjoy it, most importantly. So yeah, let's get this going. I hope you can see it, Lewis, and check in. But yeah, I hope everyone's doing well today. It's the start of the week. Let's hope that everyone is going to be a great week for everyone. Let me send this through. You can request to jump in the live, Lewis, at any point. Yeah. And most importantly, I forgot to let everyone know that's tuning in now and that's going to be tuning in later. I've got some really, really good guests in. Oh, request to jump in the live, Lewis, or you can just jump in and then jump back out again. So yeah. But yeah. Hopefully this works. I need a haircut, actually. Most importantly. Let me send this through again. Send a request. Cool. All right. Now we can get this. Yes, Lewis, man.
Sorry.
It's all right, bro. Technology gets the better of us sometimes, man.
I know. How you doing?
I'm all right, man. It's been a while, man. We've been meaning to do a shoot, but we never got round to it, man.
Yeah.
But we're here now talking about something more, like, I suppose, even more important.
Yeah, universe has its time for everything, I guess. Yeah.
I suppose if you fall in the idea of destiny and coincidence and faith. But yeah, no, could you introduce yourself to my audience and let them know who you are? And yeah.
So my name's Leon Lewis, co-founder of the Man Talk, which is a male empowerment platform here to create positive conversations, really, in regards to the experience of being a male. Yeah.
Yeah. So why did you found it, and how has it been going so far for you as an organization?
So for myself, it was, I guess, a personal need. I went through depression when I was 28, I think I was, and it kind of just hit me from nowhere. I couldn't put my finger on exactly what was causing it or what the reasons were, and it was just a hard time. I was pretty vocal with friends and family around, but that was that. I was having suicidal thoughts at the time as well, like not in a case of like actually taking my life, but just didn't want to be here anymore. Just didn't want to get out of bed, and yeah, from there I found out. Well, I got out of my situation from literally reading a book, which helped me with a lot of the stuff I was going through. And then 2 years after that, I found out that suicide was the leading cause in death in males under the age of 45. And then I realized that when I was going through what I was going through, it was such a large burden, and I didn't actually realize it was just the regular norm. Obviously, if that's the leading cause of death, it is like an okay thing for you to be going through and experiencing what I was experiencing. So I just thought, how many things are there that males carry as burdens that they don't speak about? And it's just like, you might have a room full of, I don't know, even just being on a tube with 30 guys, and they might all think they're the only person going through what they're going through. But actually, if they were to speak, have conversations, they'd realize that, you know what, I'm going through the same thing, or I've experienced similar, or I've gone through stuff in the past. So it was just like that, really. And I think a lot of males haven't really got friendship groups in which they're able to be, you know, completely open and vulnerable. And also, like guys that are in relationships, sometimes the how their relationship's set up for them to be vulnerable and to open up. It's something that's difficult for them to do. Just in thinking about, you know, what's going to happen after that, you know, what's the repercussions going to be if you're meant to be the strong male in your relationship, if that's the character and the role that you've taken on, then that's it. And I'm also aware, just in a relationship point of view, just how many people, and this isn't everybody, but a lot of people are in relationships where they're not their like 100% authentic self. They're sort of playing a character or a role to a certain degree, in a sense of like, you know, I don't know, some people are in jobs and they're not 100% themselves in their job. They're the character or the person they need to be that job, and it's just not their real self. So yeah, that was basically it.
And can I ask, so let me ask you a question. When you were going through what you were going through, how were you able to arise, and how were you able to come to the place that you are now? Because there's going to be some men who haven't been able to get out of that, and you've made the platform, but how did you find the strength?
For me personally, it was literally just a book. I stumbled across like Charlemagne the God's book, Black Privilege.
Oh yeah, okay.
And there were just a lot of things that, you know, resonated with me and made me think about my own life and what I was feeling. And I kind of put my depressed state down to me just being sort of stagnant in life, not taking charge, just going with the flow. But to be honest with you, I don't think that there's like one thing that will fix a male situation, and that's why I think it's very much important for, you know, a large group of males to be involved in the conversation, just so it's like, oh, okay, if that doesn't work for you, then maybe try this. And that was the thing with the Man Talk as well as a platform, is we've not been stuck in a set place of like, okay, we could say, oh, you know, where we work on men's mental health, but we're strong believers that it's the full male experience. Because if you're having issues financially and that's causing a large stress on your mental health, on your well-being, then we have to look at that factor as well. You can't just home in and focus on mental health as it's one thing. You know, relationships, there's loads of factors that, you know, have to be considered. So it's just, yeah, having conversations about all these things.
And you've been able to get individuals such as Terrell Lewis on, you've had Simeon Panda on as well. How important have these big names, big men especially, been to promoting the platform that you have?
Yeah, so Terrell's my business partner. So me and Terrell run the platform together. And we've also got Xavier on board, who's our in-house life coach. But yeah, having those people that, you know, the Simeon Pandas, Callum Best, we've had like, well, a load of guys on. It's been valuable in a sense of that it's brought large awareness, and also I think some people, I'm not going to say all people, but they look at certain people's sort of Instagram life and they're kind of looking at the end product, but they don't realize that, you know, there has been struggles in that journey, and it's finding out, you know, how they've got to what they got to, and where they've got to. And a lot of people still struggle like with their mental health, and you know, there's like a dark side to, you know, this social media thing. So you may think, you know, because somebody's successful and got all this stuff and fame and people are aware, there's like a dark side to that. And you know, you've got the Love Islands, there's like a few of them have committed suicide, and there has been a lot of suicide in general with celebrities. So it's just like there's a dark side, so it's kind of just explaining all of that really and just giving perspective. Yeah.
And it's interesting because when you speak about, people forget that there's a dark side typically to people. And Instagram, I think if I was to use as an example as a social media platform, it's a highlights reel. We don't post, you know, the negatives and the downs, because it doesn't work in accordance with what the platform was designed for necessarily.
Yeah.
And when you think about platforms such as Instagram, again, it's I like to call it a narcissist playground, I suppose, in the sense of we post, we go for likes, we go for comments, and so on and so on. And I want to ask, do you think social media has a big part to play with men's mental health and the decline of mental health as the years have gone on?
I'll say yes and I'll say no. I think the way in which we use social media for a lot of people is harmful in a sense of that we're exposed to so much more. And I think a lot of people, in regards to, you know, who they follow, the kind of content in which they get engaging in, because social media can be a very positive place, and people who, you know, audit their social media, who, you know, watch the accounts that they follow, they are probably receiving the positive side of social media, but then there also is the dark side. And I think it's something that's not really been explained or spoken about, I guess. So I think a lot of people have kind of stepped into the world of social media on autopilot mode, and it's really to sell us stuff in it. Like we're consumers really, and I think in regards to people knowing what's positive and what's bad for them, they don't necessarily know. Like you may follow somebody because you think, I like them, I think they're cool, I like the relationship that they have, I like their kids, and you like all of those stuff. But on the flip side of that, all of this liking is actually making you look at yourself and think, oh, I'm unhappy in this respect, I don't like this about myself, and all of that stuff. So I think it's just mindset. So I think I haven't answered your question, but I've answered your question.
I think I somewhat get it. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you, in terms of men and mental health, why do you believe that not enough men speak about their issues? And what do you think some of the factors are that lead men to commit themselves, to kill themselves at such high rates?
I think what a man is in 2020 has it's changed so much to what a man used to be. But I think we're very much so set in the historical mindset of, you know, a male being the provider, the male being strong, the male being all of these things. So I think there's a lot of, it's almost invisible pressure and imaginable pressure, imaginary pressure, in a sense of that realistically it's not as important as it once was. Like, you're not going to randomly get attacked walking down the road. Like, you haven't really got to fully protect your partner as, you know, there was a time. And I think a lot of us have conversations and speak about stuff, but are not actually like taking a step back and seeing, you know, what's really going on, what's really happening here. So I just honestly think like that has a large part to do with it. And also just there aren't a lot of spaces in which men are able to open up and be themselves. Like, a lot of guys are fortunate to have friendship groups, are fortunate to be in, you know, have family relationships in which they are able to open up. But for a lot of men, they aren't, and they have friendships in which, you know, banter, take the mick out of each other, all of this stuff. So actually to have a serious conversation about things that we're going through, kind of majority of the time the first answer is accepted of like, you know, how are you doing? Oh yeah, I'm good, I'm fine. But it's like, you know, how are you really doing? Like, what's really going on in your life? Observing. So I think that's just a large factor, and also like we tend not to deal with the issues. It's more so like distracting or running away from the issues. You know, if I'm not feeling too great or whatever, I might go out and have a good time, or go and like, you know, people turn to alcohol or drugs, or women even, and it's just like that whole thing of not actually unpackaging what the issue is, what you're going through, like, and just the effects of like, yeah, just childhood trauma and how you've created yourself from your childhood. A lot of it stems from. So I guess like even therapy, we don't really, many guys aren't exposed to, you know, therapy or the value in therapy, the value in discussing stuff. So yeah, that's it.
I think that's a very interesting, in the sense of, I find therapy for me has been so helpful. I think there's certain parts of my past that I've looked at in terms of how I was raised, and I thought, I don't want to project that onto other people. I don't want to project it onto children that I have in the future, and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. Why do you think men have still not found solace, perhaps in traditional therapy, but your platform, it acts as a form of therapy in some senses? Why do you think it's easier for them to access the man talk as opposed to going to the NHS to sit down with a therapist?
I guess it's I can't speak for everybody, but I think I would personally feel largely it's to do with like just the whole vulnerable aspect of it, and it being an alien space in regards to, as I said, a lot of men haven't got a space in which they're able to open up. So I feel like women, they speak to their friends, they speak to their family, they unpackage a lot of stuff and experiences they're going through, and it's almost like they get a little taste of therapy in their friendship groups, and then it's like, well, if I actually went to a professional and spoke about it, it's only going to be more beneficial than it is, you know, speaking to my friends and having those kind of conversations. Whereas I think a lot of guys, it's almost like, it's just a lonely journey to therapy, to going through all of this stuff and dealing with it on your own. So I think it's like taking that step, and I haven't got the stats, but even just going to the doctors and going to the hospital and getting getting themselves checked out, like women are more likely to get themselves checked out than guys are, actually. So yeah, I think that's it. So it was like for us, what had been important, and what I saw when we were launching the platform, was it was important for it to be large and to be a movement of men, and making it cool, making it acceptable. It's okay, it's all right, as opposed to it being like, because we could have started the Man Talk on a smaller scale and said, you know, we're going to get a group of 20 guys in a room and have a conversation. And don't get me wrong, that would have been impactful, but it wouldn't have shifted things, because I just want it to be cool and be acceptable for someone to go, oh yeah, I'm going to the Man Talk, I'm going to have this conversation, I'm going to do stuff, as opposed to it being like, I know when we done our first event, I can almost guarantee that there were some guys that attended that probably said, oh yeah, I'm just going to Brixton to go and have a meal, or I'm just going to, like, as opposed to kind of saying it with their chest, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's just for me, I just think it's just making things more acceptable, making it okay, and that's what's going to kind of shift the conversation forward. Yeah.
And typically in society now, we hear the word toxic masculinity. Do you think toxic masculinity has a lot to do with why men don't talk and why men continue to face these issues? And do you think the Man Talk has the power to challenge certain notions of toxic masculinity?
I would say yes, in because I just wanted it to basically be as a platform for every male, every guy, and kind of include everybody in the conversation. And I know, like, for some, you could say toxic masculinity has been a factor, whether it be, you know, the parenting or what relationships they have, the males around them. But for others, it just hasn't been that. So I don't like to pin the blame on that and say that's the reason. And I think what's also been interesting when I've been running the platform is that I've had certain panelists on the panel who can be put into certain categories which maybe have a negative tone, but I think it's really important for us to, you know, understand every male and every person and every individual, because you can't just pick and choose groups. So it's like, you know, oh, this group of people are open to therapy, or they're open to this, so yeah, we're going to kind of go with everyone. I think it's important to sort of just educate everybody and have those conversations. Yeah. So
okay. And previously in one of your comments, you spoke about the pressure that men face in society. There's invisible and there's imaginary pressures. So typically when we think about women, the pressure is, in some senses, they're objectified, constantly seen as sexual objects. And typically when we think about men, we don't really like to talk about men are seen as success objects, in the sense of, if a man's not successful, he's not as attractive. Do you think men still face the pressure of being successful to being attractive to the partners, romantically speaking?
I think the focus has to be on self before, like, we can even throw anybody else into the picture. And I think that it's important I think the issue again with men has been, and women as well, is that it's almost operating for an external factor, be it a guy or a female, as opposed to working on their self and being, you know, sure of yourself. So I think there's someone for everyone, if that makes sense. So it sounds a bit like, yeah, I think there's somebody for everyone. So I think that there are people who are, you know, successful, and then there are a certain kind of girl that may be attracted to that, but then there are girls who aren't attracted to them for their success. They're just attracted to them for the individual, the person they are. And I think something that a lot of people aren't really, or not aware of, but people don't really take on, is that people project, like, their stuff onto you. Like your partner can, a partner, should I say, not necessarily your partner, but a partner can project their stuff onto you. So them experiencing childhood trauma, and them, you know, women wanting I need a strong man, I need someone who's gonna like look after me, protect me, blah blah blah, like all of this stuff. It's like, realistically, if you look at it, what do you need protection from? Like, what do you really need protection from? Like, you know, all of this stuff. I have a job. This is the salary. These are our bills. Blah blah blah. But it's like there's so much stuff in, like, people say stuff, but it's never really like challenged or questioned, isn't it? Like, I need. Some things I understand and I get, like, it is attractive for a guy to be a certain way and for them to experience it. But I think there is like that male and female energy. And I think sometimes in some relationships, there are actually, it's the female who would maybe take on more of the masculine energy than the male, if that makes sense. And they want, like, a partnership can work fine like that. It just depends on the individual. So I don't like to just say, oh, that it's like that, because I think that there is someone for everyone in a relationship sense. I'll beat around the bush with that answer, but yeah.
Yeah, because I think with some of my friends, typically when we have conversations, there's a pressure in the sense of some men feel like they've got to have a salary, they've got to have a house, they've got to be able to pay for the first date. And they said if they can't do any of that, they don't want to date, simply because a lot of women now, this is an opinion from some people. They say a lot of women now no longer want to help a man build, but they want to be at the end of the finish line. And I think that's where some men may feel that pressure comes from. And when we think about like a very unstable job market, a very unstable, you know, world at the moment, especially to do with COVID, a lot of men have lost jobs. And typically, whilst the fields have changed, is the mindset with men changing in terms of how we see ourselves?
But you know what you're saying in regards to females and some of your friends, what they were saying. I think, again, that's why I say it's very important to work on self and to understand and know what self wants. Because if you're saying, like, a lot of people want and need that, if being successful, if having a car, if all of this thing that you're saying that a woman needs, it's almost like you're basically saying, I'm not saying you as a new person, but somebody's saying, I'm not that, and that's what I need to be to get the partner. So that's when things become very warped. So is that actually, am I being successful for me, or am I being successful because
for someone else?
Exactly, because success for me is basically, a real successful person is somebody who is working towards what they're working on, doing what they're doing, and that's how they become successful. And then they may attract a certain type of person, they may do all that stuff, but they don't do things to attract people, if that makes sense. It's more so just being on your own journey, being on your path. And I think this is a thing that's very warped at the moment in regards to social media, in regards to, like, outlook, in regards to mindset. It's like, it's just all show, it's very, like, highlight reel, but how much stuff are you actually doing for you? I might go to Mercedes, take out this and get a new car, do all of this stuff, buy all of these clothes. But am I doing it for me? Like, do I actually, when you buy your dream, you're meant to be like, I love this car. This is why I purchased this car, is because I love it and I love everything about it. But so many people are doing things to be like, yeah, when they see me pull up in this car, they're going to think this and they're going to feel this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, so many people in life, they haven't got their priorities sorted out correctly. It's all about, like, instant gratification. If there's no, like, long-term goal, no long-term plan. And I think, like, what's also missing in the conversation is just there's no one holding people accountable in regards to their thoughts, in regards to their processes. So it's like, you want to do that. It's like, why do you want to do that? What's the reason for you to do that? Are you doing it for you? And it's like that. And even just a conversation in regards to, like, girls and all of that. It's like, if you're doing it for them, then is that the person that you are? Is that the individual? Because, again, if you lose your job, if you lose the car, if you lose all of these things, that's what your success, that's what you've built yourself up on. And it's not actually you, like, it's not you. So, yeah, that's my answer.
But interestingly, someone made a good point here. They said that there's an approval addiction. And as you said, instant gratification. We no longer live in a society where delayed gratification really matters necessarily. So it makes me want to ask, we have, so again, going back to social media and going back to the way we consume information in such minute amounts now. You think about Instagram, you've got 30 seconds, you've got 60 seconds. Everything is smaller. Nobody wants to see the journey, but everybody wants to see the results. Are men more likely to fall victim to that for the need to impress somebody? And how can somebody therefore look to self to say, I need to do this for myself and for nobody else? What would your advice be?
Yeah, it is a process. Like everything is a process, and I think it's about understanding. Sorry if my answer sounds sounding the same, but just understanding what it is that you want to like. I think with everything, it just starts with a lot of self-work. Like self-work. There isn't anything wrong with wanting cars, wanting like these material things, if that is what is fueling you, if that's what's feeding you. But it's a case of like, for myself personally, I would look at building something that is going to make that lifestyle or that thing sustainable. And I think someone mentioned or put in the comments about ego as well, and I think that is like largely to do with it as well is like these things kind of push and drive ego, and I think it's just important for people to just do self work, so you're able to say no, like I don't want to do that, or I know what that is, or I see this, yeah, I just seeing things for what they are, yeah.
But then typically I find with being a man, sometimes, as you said, ego can be a big part. And I find it quite relieving to look at myself, and when I've gone to therapy, I've either come out of therapy really happy or I've come out of therapy really sad and upset. But I find that liberating. As you said, and we both probably agree, not every man finds that liberating. It's hard to do internal work when the external factors do not always reward you for that. And as you said, to have the self want to do it for no one else but yourself. How did you come to that place where you realize, Lewis, that I have to do it for me? Because there's going to be people, there's going to be men especially, but like, I don't want to do that. That's not important to me. And there's other stuff that's more important. How do we get men to realize it's really important for us to reduce our ego and to do the hard work?
I think it's having conversations regarding like the process, the benefits, and what the rewards that you reap from doing that type of work. For myself, it was very much so getting into books. That was what really, finding out how valuable books are, and just going through, like, you can go through life and read no books, taking no knowledge, and it's like you're literally just making things 1,000 times harder for yourself because you're not able to tune into like previous experiences. And a lot of authors have put all of what they've taken in from this earth, on their time on earth, all of the experiences, all their goals, and put in a book. So by you reading a book, that is what's going to make a difference. And I think for myself, there's been so many things like finance, fitness, nutrition, literature, like books, as I was saying. When I was a child, or when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, nobody really sat me down and said, look, these are the benefits of these things. These are the people who, like, so majority of successful people, the conversation you have with a lot of them is they read a lot of books, they have fitness is in their routine, they have some sort of exercise, some sort of mindfulness. Majority, if we talk about successful guys, so it's just like, and that's in all realms of, if it's like in a business sense, like financially successful, if it's being successful religiously, spiritually, like whatever, majority of the components that people who are at the top use and what they tap into, it's the same. So it's just about having a conversation about people and with people. And it's like, some people say, you know, you need to get a house, right? You need to get on the property ladder. Like, you'll hear that from when you're like 17, 18, like have this long conversation, like you need to get on the property ladder. And then you hear how much it is for a deposit, then you might only have £27 in your bank account. And then it's like, I can't see how I'm going to get to saving that deposit into get. So no one's giving me a direct path. So it's like, I'm not going to start behaving better with my finance. I'm not going to start building from the place and space in which I am, because I can't see it happening. I can't see, it's not possible. So I think it's just about having conversations with people in regards to the process, and also just the benefits of the process. Like, you're going to reap benefits. And also, like, this starting thing I've given to you, or I've said to you, it may not work. However, it doesn't mean that everything. So I might say to you, this book's great. You might not feel this book. However, there's going to be alternative books, other books that are going to work for you. And I think, like, with everything that I do, if I give somebody advice, I always try to, like, make it personal to them, try to understand. Like, I will never, if someone asks me, oh, what's a good book? Like, I couldn't just give an answer for a good book, because it depends on the individual's situation, what they're into, what their interests are, like, where they want to go. So yeah, I think the most important thing is the process. Someone said about true self and purpose. Again, purpose is, I think man needs purpose. Like, that is something that's very much so needed. And I think it's about, some people say, oh, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't know. And it's like, you've just got to work from where you are, what's available to you, what you can do, what you are interested in. And it's like, it's not just going to fall into your lap. And I think there's so many people who don't take any action, they don't make any movements, because they're worried of, you know, things not working out, or them failing, or it not necessarily being the thing that's meant to happen. And it's just like, you have to understand, again, life is a process, it's a journey, and you might do the first thing, fail, but when you do it the second time round, you have the knowledge and experience from your first failure to know that you're not going to make the same mistakes that you made the first time around. And also, just skills are transferable. Like, I've done so much stuff since I like left school. I got into sort of doing graphic design. I do music. I do photography. I do so much. I do so many things. But it's like, things just come together in regards to it all making sense, and they're all being like transferable skills. So sometimes you learn things and it may not actually be, you know, what you're actually doing in which that skill is going to come useful. It may turn into something that's great later on down in the line. Yeah.
People have asked, we've got some good comments, and before I go to the comments, ideally everyone throw questions in the question box. I'll still ask them. But Lewis, I want to ask you, you and I both unanimously agree that books are the key. Reading is very important, but it's very contextual as well, based on your situation, how you feel, how you think. Typically, when you think about being black boys are locked in with achievements of the body and not achievements of the mind. So it's easy for us to go and play sport, but to do that internal work is harder. For us to be academic is laughed on and frowned upon. When I grew up, typically I was one of the children in school that I enjoyed reading, and boys made fun out of me, but I was never deterred from it necessarily. Why do you believe that young black boys, perhaps, this is a generalization, are not as in tune with reading, perhaps, as we should be? And why is it being intellectual is almost frowned upon in some parts of the black community?
I guess it's just what's being pushed in like, I guess, black culture, like, largely on, if it's not putting everything into black culture, but if I say hip hop, R&B, like, that's probably the biggest export globally, or like just music and entertainment, like, globally around the world. And in regards to, I can't remember the question fully, but in regards to books, it's not, a lot of the time it's not shared, or I think the conversation in regards to books is just the wrong book. Like, going through school experience in school, it's like, educational books are completely different to the literature, that the rest of the literature that's out there. So I think in education, there may have been a time where you were just reading books because you had to read books, and I didn't really want to read books, but I got to read books because I have to read books. And then it's like, there are other books out there that are going to help you to sort of educate your mind, soul, to take things to the next level, and understanding that majority of, if not all, successful people read. Like it's everybody reads. So it's like so many times people look at the image of somebody, look at their result, look at all of that, but they don't understand that reading has been a large part of this. Like reading is a large part of this. There's a saying, the person who doesn't read only lives one life. A reader lives 1,000 lives. The person who doesn't read only lives one life. And I think it's just, that's what needs to be pushed. And I think a lot of the times the wrong books are being pushed and the wrong process is being pushed onto people while they're not getting into books. And also it's all an alternative. So if you reading a physical book isn't good for you, there's also audible versions. There's also these things are available. So it's just making it all acceptable and okay for all of these things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me take a question that we have here. I'm going to read this out and I'm going to put it up. So it says, do you think race plays a part regarding men not reaching out to another, i.e., is it more common amongst black men or does it bear no relevance?
I think I'd probably say it's more than likely larger within the black community. And I think there's so much stuff that we experience going through being young, being teenagers, like the whole gang culture. If you're going to be a good black boy or a bad black boy and what that looks like, and then navigating it through society seeing you to be, it's just, there's so much stuff that we navigate as young black males that isn't spoken about, and it's just you almost see it as being the norm and being okay and being acceptable, and not understanding that there's repercussions later on in life, and also just the whole parenting style of not talking about being you can't show any emotion really. You've got to be strong. What you're crying about, I give you what you're crying for, I'll give you something to cry about. And all of that stuff, so just suppressing emotions, all being something kind of being that strong now. And then also there's institutional racism that's you've had to deal with throughout, not being able to be oneself. There's been times at work where I haven't been able to share what I'm doing at the weekend, or be open, or just be myself, or talk in my normal tone, because that's not what I see as being professional or being right or being correct. But then that has an effect on you realistically, because who you see self as to be, it's almost saying self is not good enough, self is not okay, self is. And I think in regards to this whole culture talk that's been happening with Black Lives Matter and there being equality and everything being a level playing field, I think within the black community there's a lot of work that needs to be done in regards to us and how we feel about ourselves and the kind of conversations that we be having, because almost how some people it's oblivious to it's oblivious that it's not a level playing field. It's to some blacks, they don't see all of the things that they are okay with, being stopped by the police, and there being a difference in how stuff. Because sometimes for myself, even just traveling on public transport, it just annoys me how I know if an elderly white woman was to do something push in front of a queue and jump on the train, if a black boy was to come and do the exact same thing, it would be seen as a big issue. But then it was okay for the little lady to do it, if that makes sense. But
okay.
Yeah.
We'll take another question by Harry Mack. It says, do you think sometimes people confuse happiness for a destination when it's just part of our journey along with everything else?
Yes, I would say 100%. And I think a lot of people feel as though they're going to reach some point and it's just all going to click and I'm at happiness. And then from there, you're just plain sailing at 100%. And it's not the case. It's up and down, and you've got to still kind of continue and carry on putting in the work. And in regards to the Man Talk and us having the panelists in which we do is because it's interesting to see wealthy people, what their ups and downs are, what they're affected by. Because if you're not wealthy, if you're not successful, if you just look from the place that you're at, you're going to be like, yeah, when I get there, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be hunky-dory. But that's just not the case. And even if you look at your own life, there's been times when you've said to yourself, you know, when I finish primary school, that's going to be it. I'm going to be in secondary school. That's all I need to do is just get to secondary school. Then you're in secondary school. Then you're like, oh, when I leave, I'm going to get to college. I'm going to go uni. Then there's going to be loads of, but all of these things, and you put these like milestones in your life. But at the stage of where you are, you're like, once I reach that milestone, everything's going to be sorted. It's all going to be done. Like in regards to jobs, certain times, or reaching certain pay scales, or there's just so much stuff that you say to yourself, like once you get it, that's going to be it. Everything's going to be okay, and then it just moves. And the same goes with like success. The same goes with happiness. It just moves. But I think it's very much it's important for someone to work on self and to be able to function like just with the bare minimum, and everything else is a bonus. And I think it like doing work with, you know, gratitude and mindfulness and doing all of these things, you'll reap the benefits because you don't need all of that stuff. So I think like even at this time with, you know, having the lockdown and dealing with the pandemic, I think an issue for a lot of people was they were unable to be with self. I can't go to the restaurant, I can't socialize, I can't do all of these things. So just being able to just be with self, I think that's important.
Lewis, so during lockdown, COVID really shook the world up for some people. And following on from a comment that we have here, that lockdown was a good time for people to find themselves. Has lockdown been a good time for man talk? Do you find more men have come forward to speak about their issues, or do you find it's a bit regressed at all?
It has been a good time for the man talk in regards to, you know, having a conversation, speaking about things. To be honest, as a platform, I kind of took a conscious decision to just step back a bit because we deal with like the day-to-day issues, and we may have got it wrong. Like people may have wanted to see more of us, for us to have a conversation in regards to like COVID and the whole situation. But for me personally, I just remember at the beginning of this all, I was super overwhelmed with everything. Like there's a level of fear with this invisible virus. You don't know what's going on. There's also like all of the conspiracy theories, some of them seeming to make a lot of sense and making sense. So just not really knowing or being aware of what's going on. You have to listen to what the government are saying because they're dictating what your next moves and your next steps are going to be, where you're going to be with your job and stuff. So I just found the whole time to be very overwhelming. Every single person in your life, the topic is COVID. So it was like, I didn't want to contribute as a platform to all of this noise on social media and stuff and whatever. But then at the same time, it was like people had this big COVID fish to fry. So it's like talking about the day-to-day issues, which is almost alien to the situation because we are in lockdown. So talking about childhood trauma, talking about all of these things, your mental health to a certain extent, all of these things that were pre-COVID, it was kind of hard to justify. So I kind of just took a step back. But at the latter end, we started doing the Zoom events, and we've done 2 so far. And yeah, like we've had over about 160 males in that, and it's been great as a being on Zoom because we've had people in like New York, Singapore, and it's just had like a Sweden as well. It was just like a global reach, which has been great. So I think had we not had this whole COVID situation, we probably wouldn't have stepped into that. But yeah, that's been what COVID's been for us as a platform. Yeah.
What does being a man in 2020 mean to you, Lewis?
Being a man in 2020. So that's a good question. I haven't been asked that one before. I think it's just being. It's being self, being true to you. I think I've probably said a lot of the same thing in this. in this talk. But yeah, I think it's just being real to self, innit? Like I can't say there's a correct or a wrong way of being a male. It's just I think you need to find what it is that you like, what feeds yourself, and then have a routine, have structure that feeds that to be the best possible version of yourself, in it, like whatever that self looks like. We're not in a space like where, you know, the male has to provide, the male has to do this, and I think all of these old ideals have warped like a lot of men, and they put a lot of pressure on men's mental health. Like you've got guys who are going on dates with women who are earning like twice their salary, maybe even 3 times their salary, but they're like footing the bill and paying for it, and obviously because they're working at a certain level, they're expecting a certain level. So personally, I just think it's about being true to oneself, and sometimes you have to just leave something. Like if you know something isn't for you, you just got to leave it on the shelf. Like there's nothing wrong with like aspiring for certain things, but just because you want something, it doesn't mean it's right for you. Like, so I think it's about just understanding yourself, working on self, building up self, and just getting to a crazy high level. I think there's a lot of, in 2020, there's a lot of distractions, and I think it's about avoiding the distractions and actually seeing like life for what it is. And I think life can be very simple if you understand it from a simple place, like in regards to situations. Like all that happens really is just like conversations and just basic stuff, but you can build up all of these stories and things to make it like so much more and be so much more complicated. And I think self also, like working on self, is also like dealing with your childhood, you know, the effects of your parenting. Like I think a lot of people struggle with the fact that they make their parent be some sort of superhero. Like your mum, your dad was meant to be this thing, and some mums and dads were great and done all of the stuff that, you know, the child wanted them to do, whereas other parents didn't do that stuff, and there was like this expectancy that, you know, my mum should have been this and my dad should have done that, and I don't know why, and I would have never, and blah blah blah. But I think obviously there are bad parents who do really bad things, but I think in majority of cases, majority of parents were just doing the best in which they can do at the time with the knowledge that they had at the time. And we sometimes don't see them as just being human beings. So like you accept it from a friend or accept it from that, but like when it comes to a parent, they're supposed to be some different realm of human being. So yeah.
So can I take from your answer, I suppose someone said it's a loaded question, and it absolutely is a loaded question. So as I said, from your answer, I can take it's being self-aware, being self-critical, knowing oneself, and understanding that I suppose it's a journey that you're going on, and it's not a destination.
Yes. Yeah.
So when we think of Man Talk, and again, I know the work you do because I've known you for a while. I've followed a lot of work that you've done. Do Man Talk work in collaboration with other organizations that are helping men speak and trying to allow young boys and men a space in which that they can grow and flourish?
Yeah, we haven't. We are open to collaborations, and like originally when we started and launched the platform, I was like, hey, like yeah, like we're open and we'll do collaboration, but it was just, we had a lot of work to do as a platform to build our infrastructure and to do all of our stuff, and it has been pretty like time consuming in doing that. So actually to do all of these other like sort of collaborative events or things, whatever that looks like, it hasn't really been a possibility. But we are open to it. We done early on this year. We done a collaborative event with Gymshark, and they reached out to us, and it kind of just made sense, and it was just another event. So it was just, yeah, if it makes sense and it's going to make a difference, then we do it. Basically, we've done a talk at the Home Office as well. That was great. So yeah, if it makes sense, we'll do it. But it's just, we can't be pulled away from like the actual work in which we're doing, if that makes sense. So sometimes if we were to do a collaboration, it kind of sidetracks us from actually us moving forward and progressing. Because as a platform, we're doing great work. We've done amazing events, but there's still so much more that we want to execute on and where we want to take it. Yeah.
And do you believe the future is positive, number one, for masculinity, number two, for manhood, and number three, for men? Do you feel the future is a positive place?
Yeah, definitely. I just feel there just has to be sort of more conversations, really, and conversations of value, conversations where people can apply themselves. I think for years, and this was another reason as to why I wanted to kind of create the platform, was just like, people talk about mental health, people talk about stuff, but it's like, what are the actionables for people to take? Even like celebrities coming out and saying, you know, I've struggled with mental health, I've struggled with this, I've struggled with that. Like, saying that it brings awareness to it, it's great, but then you could go a step further by actually saying what your experience was like, how I went to therapy. Therapy was great for me. This is why therapy was great for me. Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, what's been pushed for years is just, it's great. So-and-so's come out and said that they've had battles with mental health. So it's just like, what does it look like? Because it's great for me to say Justin Bieber's suffering, but it's like, okay, he's got a large, massive platform where he could actually make a lot of people feel reassured with the burdens in which they have, or actually have actionables, or I've tried this, or I spoke to this person, and you know what, I haven't actually tried that, but they've tried that, and that might be beneficial. And they're the kind of conversations that are going to make a difference. And I think also it's just about having a level of authenticity. I think there's so many people, influencers and celebrities, who have chosen their time to be authentic and real, chosen their time to cry on camera, but then there's been times when they've been having the worst week ever, then they get on social media and are smiling and everything's great and everything's hunky-dory. And I understand that it's a platform and, you know, you're a business and a brand and all of that stuff, but at the same time, I don't want people being a part of this conversation in regards to like well-being, being a part of this conversation in regards to like health, if you're not going to be consistent with that, innit? Like, if you're not feeling great, then don't post or don't say anything if that's not what you want to share with the world. But don't like lie and hide behind it, because it's like, you can champion someone for having one authentic post, but 99% of their stuff is just a load of rubbish. Like, so it's yeah.
But Lewis, I'm going to ask you just two more questions. We live in a society that rewards impulsive behaviors and negative reinforcement. As you said, we have influencers, we've got celebrities who champion moments in which they can be vulnerable, because society doesn't reward what we commonly characterize as weakness, which is typically that humans, we go through highs and we go through lows, and sometimes our lows are bigger than our highs. Do celebrities and anyone who's in the public spotlight, do they owe the community more of a responsibility to be honest and authentic?
I don't think they owe it, but it's just down to the individual and the person. And I think sometimes even that, like the whole talk of, you know, celebrity or influencer, they're just human beings. Like, they're not anything. They're no different to you and I. Like, they're just human beings. Like, they're just regular people. And I think sometimes we apply all of this pressure and expectation of like, yeah, but they're a celebrity and they've got this blog, and it's like, they can do what they want. So it's like, when you go to the off license, or you go to the news agents and someone's there, you're not like, oh no, she needs to do. It's like, yeah, they've just got to the place of what they've got to, and that's their choice and decision, and they can kind of be the individual and be the person they want to be. But I just don't like it when people use something, it's being used. So like, in regards to mental health, it's being used because it's like being in topic, or, you know, people might side, or I might be more relatable, or it's like that. Like, I think one of my favorite celebrities, and it's someone I really want to get on the mantle panel, is like Stormzy. And I think he's just very consistent in what he speaks about, his tone in regards to him as a person, like as an individual, like, and he's not very much so caught up in the materialistic side of the celebrity. Like, just if that makes sense, he's just
I know. So I'm gonna be having an Instagram live with Carney's Community Center. They work closely with Stormzy, so I can set you up if that makes a little help, you know, put some links in. But my final question is going to be, what does the future hold for Man Talk, and where would Man Talk like to be as an organization? Where do you envision yourselves?
Where we want to, we're going to become just global and make the biggest difference in regards to men opening up and talking, and we don't just come from a place of like speaking on mental health, speaking on therapy. It's also just the whole positive side of you know, pursuing your passion, just being inspired by people. But we just wanted to start a community that is kind of each one teach one, and that's the conversation. So there isn't a lid that I see for the Man Talk. Like, I want to just take it as far as it can be taken, and like just step by step we'll get there.
And where can everyone find you? Because obviously I'm going to link your socials afterwards, but what can people do to help Man Talk continue to thrive as a platform?
So you can be found on Instagram at the Man Talk, and just to support us is just literally just to support content, follow events. There's been a large ask for us to move over to sort of doing mixed events, and we're just support the platform. That's it, really. Yeah.
We have one last question. I said I was going to do one, but I've gone over. We're going to keep this. I'm going to have to keep this really short. Do you think that a lot of men are holding on to past trauma that needs healing from within?
Yes. And an untold story never heals, and that's a fact. And I think a lot of people aren't telling the story, so it's not healing. And it's just inside, like when you release trauma, or you release like resentment that you've been holding for someone, there's like a physical release.
Absolutely.
In just caught up in something. So I think like that's the benefits of therapy and speaking about stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. And there's no need to apologize, by the way, Lotus. But I agree. And as I said, when I used to go to therapy and I let go of issues that I had, I either cried or I was so happy. There was no in between. It was so relieving. And I think us men, we owe it to each other to speak more about how we feel. We owe it to each other to have friendships that are nourishing, that allow us to be emotionally intelligent as well as physically intelligent. But Lewis, I got to say thank you for coming on and having the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And I think the work Man Talk does it's essential to everything that being a man should be. We have to be emotionally cognizant. You know, I think if men don't talk about their feelings, we'll continue to have the issues that we have in society.
Yes. And can you keep up and continue doing your lives? I know this is the 10th one. But yeah, I think I don't know what triggered you off to start it, but definitely continue doing it, because it's great work that you're doing. It's great conversations.
I'm humbled. I think for a while, it's what you've mentioned. For a while, I think I was a bit nervous. I wasn't too sure whether I wanted to do the lives. I wasn't really sure if people wanted to have the conversation, but speaking to yourself and to the other guests I've had, it's shown that there's a need for dialogue. There's a need for discourse. So I greatly appreciate that more than anything else. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at the gym, man, because I've been training at Brixton Street Gym.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'll see you down there for sure.
Yeah, man. So I'm looking to come and get a little workout with you. And let's cry. And let's talk about things that hurt us.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Lewis, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that's locked in. And again, check out the Man Talk. Check out Lewis's page. And we're both open. Comment, share, like, and repost. Lewis, we're going to keep in contact.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Have a great
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.